Yes, I call her Unity. Literally and figuratively embodies the strength of a man with the heart of a woman. A perfect combination, in my opinion, and what the world desperately needs. When I designed her in 1911, she was the only person in the Pennsylvania State Senate chamber to wear a dress. To see Unity as I do, indeed, to understand most of my murals in Harrisburg, you must put on your spiritual far-distance mental eyeglasses for this evening to look very far back, very far forward, and very deep within. Look at Unity's dress. Blue, the color of wisdom. She is the fountain of all the blue in the universe, the sapphire of the sea, the azure of the open sky with its drifting mists and clouds. She is the blue of all the mountains. Her voice is in the murmur of the ice flow. Look how Unity's dress and veils dissolve to become the waters of life. Over the end of warfare on the left and the end of slavery on the right, towering majestically 9 feet high and 45 feet wide above the Senate rostrum, Unity washes humanity clean. She is the cup of cold water, water for all who thirst for justice, equality, respect. Equality, justice, respect for this slave and her baby. Quite a revolutionary and public move for me in the early 1900s to meld my artistic passion with my passionate politics, painting not only history, but I hope a prophecy, compelled to remind these Pennsylvania senators that their laws affect all people, regardless of gender, age, or color. I have been called a preacher and a teacher with my art, and now you know why. Please forgive me. I have taken great liberty walking into this space, into this time, and talking without introduction. I am Violet Oakley. But then again, you must know that because you brought me here. Yes, you did. I know you did. Using my techniques, my methods to conjure me up for a lecture and tour. Thank you. But like I said, this mural is in the Pennsylvania State Senate chamber. For a proper tour, we really must begin in the first room I decorated, the governor's reception room, where I will introduce you to the gentleman who inspired me to become that preacher and teacher, and an author. Ah, yes, my book, The Holy Experiment, A Heritage from William Penn. A book that, by the way, has been translated into 5 languages, including Japanese. A book I have shamelessly promoted to everyone, from other artists to several governors, 3 presidents, and many foreign heads of state. Consider yourselves forewarned. Like most men, William, age becomes you. I hope time and history will be as kind to me. Are you ready to share our story, sir? I know. The question is, am I ready? And the answer is, I don't know. Human history, like the stars, has been controlled by immutable, self-existent law. Men have, on the whole, played the parts assigned to them. They have not written the play. Did you hear what I just said? Evidently not by the lack of reaction you gave me, so I repeat. Human history, like the stars, has been controlled by immutable, self-existent law. Men have, on the whole, played the parts assigned to them. They have not written the play. In the role assigned to me tonight, I make painful eye contact with you and command, destroy any narrow and limited sense of time, and feel with me that I am still intensely alive and intensely modern. You are here with me, and I am here with you to tour the rooms I decorated in Pennsylvania's lovely state capitol building in Harrisburg at the turn of the 20th century. A building bigger than Westminster Abbey, 2,000 square feet larger than St. Paul's, London. And the dome, the dome. The dome reaches 292 feet towards the heavens and weighs 52 million pounds. Are you impressed yet? Yes, you should be. Imagine my surprise, a delightful surprise, to be here with you on the 115th anniversary of my sharing these murals with the public. To kindle in your hearts one single spark of enthusiasm for the ancient glory of painting upon walls. To immerse myself once again in work I loved. Love. I may not want to leave. I wonder if surprise, delightful or otherwise, was how William Penn, George Fox, and Askew felt when I conjured them up in my art studio. Oh, and I dare say not just in my imagination, no. I conjured them up to talk to me, to invoke them as muses so I could tell their stories with accuracy, with insight, but most of all, with passion. And they came, they spoke, and I listened. Are you put off with such mysticism? I hope not. I finished the last panel in the series of paintings for the governor's reception room in 1906. William Penn, alone at the prow of his ship named Welcome, pondering the promise of the new land before him. I recall vividly the day this canvas and the others were removed from their stretchers, rolled, boxed, and carried out of my Villanova studio to be shipped by train to Harrisburg. I sat there, alone in the bared room, and looked about on the sudden blankness of the walls. Out of the farthest corner of the room, I saw, then heard, someone walk across the length of the studio, pause for a moment at the threshold, turn back with a gesture of understanding and farewell, a tip of his hat and poignant sigh, if you will, and pass through the door. William Penn had bid me au revoir. Tonight we meet again, William Penn, me, and you. Together we will go back to the beginning. The beginning of Penn's founding of his State of Liberty spiritual started long before his ship docked in the Delaware River in 1682, just as the beginning of these murals started long before I ever put a paintbrush on any canvas. Daddy, when are we going to Vassar to register? Your mother and I have been meaning to talk to you about that, baby. Tell her, Cornelia, that the decision has changed. Oh, our decision has changed. The decision's made. I'll be at Vassar with Hester. Tell her why she won't be at Vassar, Cornelia. Vassar's too far away. We want you closer to your home here in New Jersey. Because of your asthma, baby. Don't talk to me and treat me like I'm 2 years old. I want to go to Vassar with my sister. Enough about Vassar and Esther. We have already enrolled you in the Art Student League of New York. Hopefully someone there will teach you to paint noses on your portraits. Look, Cornelia, I see a smile. I never ever dreamed of going there. The Art Student League it educates both men and women in the arts. It's progressive. I'm shocked, thrilled. But, so, when will I go? Where will I stay? I'll be alone. Will I be alone? I don't want to be alone. You won't be living in the city. You'll take the ferry with me each morning on my way to the bank. Come home with me at night. Trust your mother and me. We see your talent and want the best for you. The best professors, the best opportunities. And the best part is, baby, you won't be alone. Alone is a frightening word, and my murals in the governor's reception room show people who made a difference in the history of the world by acting bravely alone. Playing the role written by the divine playwright for each person alone. Responding to a calling, a voice heard only in the depths of their individual souls while they were alone. William Tyndall, who in 1525 was the first to translate the Greek and Latin texts of the Holy Bible into English and print them. He, along with Gutenberg's printing press, propelled Protestantism into England. King Henry VIII condemned Tyndall as a Protestant heretic and commanded the radical to be strangled and burned at the stake. Ironically, 3 years later, as head of the Church of England, King Henry decreed that every church minister to the illiterate by reading aloud from Tyndall's Great Bible. Without William Tyndall, without King Henry VIII, there would have been no Puritan uprisings, no quest for religious freedom across the ocean, no Pennsylvania. Which brings us to George Fox, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. He established the Society of Friends, the Quakers. Without George Fox, there would be no William Penn, the Quaker, no Pennsylvania. And William Penn, who at the age of 16 and a student at Christ Church at Oxford, wrote of experiencing a vision of outer light and a sense of inner light, being called to a great task. William Penn was disowned by his family for becoming a Quaker. I could not bear to paint William Penn alone with no friend at his side. If you observe, at the same moment Penn's father washes his hands of his son, the family dog does not. A Great Dane. Coincidentally, the state dog of Pennsylvania. Look at the wall behind Admiral Penn. I have deliberately depicted a battle raging on the high seas as he and his son wage a war of words over religious freedom. It is a war I know intimately. Some battles I won, other battles I lost. I don't want to hear this nonsense, Violet. You're a baptized Episcopalian, and that's that. That isn't that. Here, read the book Mrs. Lazar gave me. She told me of her divine healing through the Church of Christian Science. Mrs. Lazar was a bedridden invalid, healed by God. Daddy, you can be healed too. Mary Baker Eddy says so. Then pray for a cure for your asthma. Right now, I want to pray for you. I'm praying God heals your nervous condition. Now, here in France. How unselfish of you. Look, I know how you think, young lady. You want to stay in Europe to study art. But I need my doctors in America. They'll send you to a sanitarium again. There are doctors in France, in England. Do we have to go back to New Jersey? Not New Jersey, baby. Philadelphia. Philadelphia? What's in Philadelphia? I had posed the wrong question to my father. I should not have asked what is in Philadelphia. I should have asked who is in Philadelphia. I direct you to the next panel. I have entitled it, Intolerance and Persecution Culminate in Civil War. It is a symbolic panel, as many of these panels are, representing no actual war against people of a particular faith. Rather, it represents the persecution that has occurred against any and all people of faith, any faith, since the beginning of time. And although I have painted persons on the verge of battle, I am here to tell you that conflict is not relegated to the battlefield with weapons and physical wounds and death. Who taught me how to tell the story of the war of ideas? Who taught me how to tell the story of the war of ideals? Who taught me, and N.C. Wyeth, Maxfield Parrish, and countless others, to tell the story with a paintbrush on canvas? Who is the knight on the white horse? Oh, stop your fidgeting, Hester. Professor Bowe expects this composition next week. I said your news can wait. And I say it can't but. You must come with your older and wiser sister immediately to Drexel to show your portfolio to my art professor. You'll want to be in my art class when I tell you what he said today. Oh, I just want to shout it from the mountaintops. Oh, fine. In your wildest dreams, can you imagine a man, a professor, announcing in class, when a woman marries, that's the end of her? The men laughed, of course. Men think we women were born only to ornament their lives as wives. You should have seen their faces when Professor Pyle said a woman dedicated to her art should not marry. Violet, for the first time, someone, and a man, no less, confirmed what you and I have observed already firsthand with Mother. She was a brilliant artist who does nothing now but embroider samplers of pillows. Professor Pyle says that a female artist should live without a man. Oh, glory, hallelujah! Oh, please, 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 Vi, come with me to class tomorrow. I know you're excited, Hester. I know, and I love what I hear. But your Professor Pyle is an illustrator. He illustrates books and magazines for the masses. For the masses and for money. Illustrators make money while they're living. They don't have to die to become famous or rich. Illustrators can pay bills. And with Daddy's sickness, we have bills. Oh, be practical, Violet. But I am practical. I'm practicing portraiture with Cecilia Bowe at the Academy. A woman artist in a man's world. You want to enter a man's world? Howard Pyle has a passport with your name on it. Oh, I know he'd be impressed with your portfolio. Well, at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, I went with Hester to class to meet her divine Howard Pyle Institute of Art, Science, and Industry. At Hester's nagging insistence, I took my portfolio. Professor Pyle's exact words to me when he saw my portfolio: "Miss Oakley, I think I can help you." I scraped together the $12 for an academic year with Professor Pyle. But I wondered, what could this man, an illustrator, teach me that Cecilia Bow, an artist and a woman, could not? Well, without Howard Pyle, without his encouragement, without his connections, I would not have been the artist commissioned in 1902 to design and create murals for the governor's reception room. Without Howard Pyle, I would not have shared a bright but stuffy third-story loft in Philadelphia with my sister Hester and 2 other art students we met at Drexel, Jessie Wilcox Smith and Elizabeth Shippen Green. And it was expensive, $18 a month, each. Without Howard Pyle, I may have succumbed to the whispers of society to marry and raise a family. Look at this panel, where a cavalier is whispering into William Penn's ear as Penn is trying to listen to Quaker teachings. Notice, I made temptation very beautiful. Without Howard Pyle, I would not have been invited to submit my portfolio to Tiffany and Company. Yes, Louis Comfort Tiffany of stained glass fame, for critique and return in an hour. Wandering alone in New York was not a pleasant prospect. However, I saw a church that was open for rest, meditation, and prayer. An omen. To be alone, in the quiet, afraid of what may be demanded of you if you listen to something deep inside yet outside yourself? Do you luxuriate in company and conversation, the cacophony of society, to elude confrontation, perhaps with the divine, a sacred challenge? Yes, I've always needed people. Felt safer with people around me, beside me. I am a woman who's afraid to be alone. But I'm not alone, am I? God, you have inspired artists from the beginning of time, including me. I feel your presence. Right now, I ask you for the opportunity to create works in stained glass and on canvas as beautiful, no, more beautiful than this painting in front of me. Amen. Rather lofty aspirations for a young, inexperienced art student, don't you think? Words articulated to God. Foolish, perhaps, in some respects. Why did I pray that prayer? I honestly don't know. Did I have a choice not to pray the prayer? Was it written and directed by the divine playwright? Would I pray that same prayer, knowing what I know now? Unlike some people, God listens. Be careful for what you pray. William Penn's prayer, alone at 16, eventually led to imprisonment. Again, I could not bear to leave him entirely alone in such cruel conditions. Here I employed Howard Pyle's technique of artistic truth versus realistic truth. Scrutinize the panel, and you will see I painted a mouse to befriend Penn when family had abandoned him. just as God gave me friends when my sister Hester abandoned me. My sister Hester made her home with Stanley Ward. Yes, despite my protests, Hester, a brilliant artist and writer, married. I was a bridesmaid for the first and only time. And because I consider marriage to a man of fate worse than death, I used my sister as the model for this historic figure by the name of Anne Askew, a British woman. The Catholic Church accused Anne Askew, a Protestant, of preaching heresy. She was the only woman to be tortured on the rack in the Tower of London. Take a moment to imagine torture on the rack. Arms, legs, torso, stretched, disfigured inhumanely. Joints popped, dislocated. Fingernails, toenails torn out. Anne Askew would have been set free of such horrendous and inhumane pain had she recanted. Instead, in 1546, a court of law, a court of men, sentenced and condemned this 24-year-old woman to be tortured and burned at the stake to die. In 1905, I was merely burned. Elizabeth, I am the first woman to receive a commission to paint murals for a public building, and the Catholic Church will single-handedly make me the last. How dare they! What is it? What are you talking about? What's upset you? Oh, Violet. Violet. Paintings for new state capital are offensive to Catholics. Oh, my word. Where did you get the Catholic Times? Some mean-spirited person left it on our front porch. Go ahead, read it aloud. Maybe I misunderstood. Please read it, Liddy. Tell me this isn't happening. The following resolutions have been adopted by the Knights of Columbus in Philadelphia, and a copy sent to the President of the Capitol Building Commission and to the Governor of the Commonwealth. Resolved, that while we are glad to believe that there was no deliberate intention on the part of the Commission to do a wrong, yet we find it difficult to reconcile their persistence in placing these obnoxious... Oh, Liddy, how can they print such vicious words? I can't read anymore. Well, they picked a fight with the wrong woman. The wrong women. Don't think you're alone in this, because you're not. Jessie, Hetty, and I will not allow any man to smear your legacy. Go get Jessie and Hetty. I'm getting the sherry. I don't care that you don't drink and it's 8 a.m. We have our armor to shine, our lances to sharpen, and battle plans to shape. These Knights of Columbus will be sorry they ever picked a fight with the Lady Warriors of the Red Rose Inn! Anne Askew did not recant, and neither did I. Howard Pyle told his students that art may interpret history, and in so doing, bring to life ideas expressed years ago with as much or more vitality and value to the world. All the panels the Catholic Church called obnoxious hang in the governor's reception room as I painted them. The petition of the Catholics was dismissed. Ironically, I believe in a previous life I was a Catholic. I was a monk. You laugh. It's true. I would never make a nun. Alice's and sisters were too busy nursing the sick and doing fine needlework. Very few nuns illustrated manuscripts. No, I am quite sure I was a monk. For that reason, I have a monk pictured in the panel with William Penn boarding the ship for a new land. It is not an accurate historic panel, lest any Knights of Columbus in the audience be offended. It is symbolic. I have included the monk that I was, the nun I was not. A Jewish rabbi, Puritans, men, women, children, babies, the human race in all stages of faith development around the world. People in bondage, bound for a land of freedom, of promise, of peace. Do they find peace? The answer is in the Senate chamber. My work in the Harrisburg Capitol had ended with the unveiling of the frieze in the governor's reception room in November 1906. Despite the bad press from the Knights of Columbus, my murals were very well received by the governor and the public. I had achieved success, a success I had hoped for, had prayed for that day in New York City, but never fully anticipated. It was glorious. But there is a price to pay for success, and I must say that I paid dearly. Whereas the governor's reception room symbolized finding the promised land, the Senate chamber portrays peril, betrayal, life-altering surprises. I begin with how life surprised two successful men. The Capitol's architect, Mr. Joseph Miller Houston, who, though claiming innocence, in 1910 was convicted of graft during the Capitol's construction and spent 7 months in the Eastern State Penitentiary, and Edwin Austin Abbey, the other artist commissioned to paint murals for the Harrisburg Capitol, who died before completing his commission. At least Joseph Houston lived to see his work shine. Oh, as President Teddy Roosevelt described it, the handsomest state capitol in the United States. Abbey had been commissioned to decorate the dome of the Rotunda, House of Representatives, Senate, and Supreme Court. His was the most colossal commission ever given to a painter in the United States, and it proved too heavy for him. He laid down his life in devoted service to his state and died in 1911 before the last panel of the House of Representatives was quite completed. To fill the void his death left, the Capitol Building Commission asked me to decorate the Senate and Supreme Court. I went back to the governor's reception room and took up my thread. If you recall, the last panel showed William Penn and the prow of his ship. I had stopped short of rendering any work about life in the state itself. So I began thinking about the Quaker codes upon which Pennsylvania was founded. No forts, no armed force, no militia, no established church, no difference or rank, and a harbor open for the reception of people from all nations, children of every language, every creed, and every color. However, William Penn's ideals were betrayed when ships of African natives were brought to our shores to be sold as slaves. Because the colony of Pennsylvania was founded on the principle of equality among all peoples, I have painted how a wealthy Quaker saved one ship from that dire fate. It is documented that he bought all the captives and then paid for the ship to sail to Nova Scotia where the African people were freed. I am quite certain the spirit of William Penn celebrated that moment. I move on to the Revolutionary War. Battles fought on Pennsylvania soil, Well, in being true to ourselves, some could say we betrayed England. Then to Philadelphia in 1787, the Constitutional Convention, where our first president, George Washington, boldly proclaimed a new country, United States. Union, unity, an idea, an ideal. But look at the lower right of the panel. Ideal conditions for all men, and women are not even in the picture. A group of men made history with the creation of their union in Philadelphia in the 1780s. A group of women made history with the creation of their union in Philadelphia in the 1900s. I'm in here, by the fire, and feeling much better than I did a few hours ago. Violet! Oh, what's in your hair? Are those rose petals? In February? Why? Henrietta, I am the second woman and youngest artist ever to win the Pennsylvania of Fine Arts gold medal. What? Congratulations! Oh, forget this hot toddy. Just settle my stomach. I love Jesus as much as you do, Vinny. But this moment deserves wine. So, here's to our Violet, our Duchess of Oaks, and in 1905 being a gold medal year. It's you who deserves toast and my medal. Jessie, Elizabeth, and I make a living with art only because you make a home for all of us. Well, I certainly don't deserve to wear your medal, but I will take credit for feeding these girls on a schedule. Breakfast at 8:30, lunch at 1, dress for afternoon tea at 4:30 with tea at 5 o'clock. Dinner at 6:45. Otherwise, you three paint all day and forget to eat. And if you're making toast to others, then I propose a toast to 2 men. Let's give credit where credit is due. Although Professor Pyle was a bit upset he was not asked to decorate the Capitol, let's toast to Professor Pyle and architect Joseph Houston for convincing the Pennsylvania State Capitol Commission that at least one of the rooms should be decorated by a woman, even if it was the smallest one. No wonder Mary Cassatt refused. You're famous, Biddy, and making history. Remember that art critic who said you didn't have a masculine mind to paint murals? That women artists should be painting images of mothers and babies? Remember the policeman who stopped you getting into the Capitol because women aren't allowed in those hallowed halls, and you needed to measure the walls for your murals? Show both those men this gold medal. Violet, here you are, doing what you love, and getting paid for what you love to do. My God, you should be making what Abby's making. So what if you're young and a woman? You're talented, and this gold medal says you're brilliant. I say equal pay for equal work, and you better remember that. People stop me in the market saying, that Violet, no woman has ever painted murals in a government building. I just look at these idiots and say, after all these centuries, don't you think it's time
Very.
I love you, Betty. I love all of you. I am the luckiest woman in the world to get to live and love with you. Howard Pyle may call you all his red rose girls, but by God, you're my red roses too. Doing things women have never done before. So here's to Violet Oakley. Duchess of Oaks, a red rose girl, and the first woman to get her foot inside the Pennsylvania Capitol door. Or at least your paintbrush. Oh, dear little Hetty, I loved you. I loved my life. In the early 1900s, of course, we women could not buy the Red Rose Inn. But we were able to rent it. 4 single women betrayed the rules of society. 3 artists and Hetty, our life. We posed for one another, critiqued one another, supported one another. We shared a home. We were a family. With a family name creatively concocted by Henrietta's sister, using the first letter of our last names. C for Henrietta Cousins. O for Violet Oakley. G for Elizabeth Shippen Green. And S for Jessie Wilcox Smith. We were the Cogs. Ours was an arrangement made respectable by my mother and Mr. and Mrs. Green living with us, but an avant-garde arrangement nonetheless for the early 1900s. Union, unity, an idea, an ideal. Yes, union, unity, an idea, an ideal. Here I portray President Lincoln in Gettysburg, mourning a union that betrayed that ideal from within. In my own life, I have learned that betrayal comes from within and without. The year that began with a gold medal and was triumphant fighting the Knights of Columbus ended with grief. My sister Esther died of scarlet fever, though I contend she died of a broken heart. A heart that never healed when her precious 3-year-old daughter passed away a few years earlier. My sister Esther, gone forever. Ah, beloved muse. We Cogs barely endured Christmas. And then, a month later, there was a knock on the front door. Miss Violet Oakley, Miss Jessie Wilcox Smith, Miss Elizabeth Shippen Green, and Henrietta Cousins. Cousins. I'm Miss Cousins. Who are you? I represent Mr. Henry S. Kerball. And who's he? Who's Mr. Kerball? Who's Mr. Kerball? He's the new owner of this property with a message for Miss Violet Oakley, Miss Jessie Wilcox Smith, Miss Elizabeth Shippen Green, and Miss Henrietta Cousins. Read it. Well, that's highly unusual. And it's addressed to Miss Violet Oakley, Miss Jessie Wilcox Smith. They're busy. Read it, young man. But wouldn't you rather read this in private with them? Read the damn letter! Yes, ma'am. on May 1st, 1906, subject to 3-month notice, and the said Anthony J. Drexel Jr. and Margarita, his wife, having granted, assigned, and conveyed to me the said premises with the lease, you and each of you are hereby notified and required to quit and deliver up to me possession of the said premises, which you now hold as tenant under me at the expiration of the said lease, namely the 1st day of May, 1906, as I desire to have such possession. Signed, Mr. Henry S. Kerbal. You look faint, ma'am. May I? Don't touch me. Get off this property immediately. Immediately! I'm just doing my job. And I'm doing mine. Taking care of 3 young women who work very hard on their art every minute of every day in that barn over there. That's where they are right now. Painting. And it's not natural, according to Mr. Kerbal. 4 women living together. No husbands. No jobs. They paint. Where's Mr. Kerbal's rent coming from? He doesn't want any beggarly artists on the place. Said so himself. And very loudly. People are talking. About what? The medals? The newspaper articles? Magazine covers? The massive amounts of stories that are written about these 3 talented young women. People may expect women to marry and raise a family. Because these women are married to their art and raise eyebrows, this people would like to meet Mr. Kerbal face to face and tell him to go to hell! Miss Cousins, I still need a signature! We were not beggarly artists, Mr. Henry S. Kerbal. We were the Red Rose Girls. We moved to a new home in 1906 with our Red Rose Union still intact. We were able to rent a Chestnut Hill property from Elizabeth's relatives, the Woodwards. It was a beautiful house, a spacious barn for a studio, a smaller estate, but picturesque. We called it Cogsley. Cogs, our family name, and Lee for the sloping meadows of the property. But it was not the same. Without or within, an interloper had arrived. Much like the interloper I have illustrated in the Quaker legend of the latchstring. As pioneers forged into the wilderness of western Pennsylvania, not everyone was Quaker. Nor did all settlers remain unarmed in their quest for land and a new life, a betrayal to Penn's ideal of peace. The story goes that a Quaker family retired for the night, and because neighbors had warned them of dangerous Indians, the father pulled in the latchstring, effectively locking the door. However, neither parent could rest, because locking the door went against their principles of divine trust. Only when the father got up, putting the latchstring out, did the couple finally sleep. But savages interrupted their slumber, bursting through the open door, ready to kill. Indian phrases rang out. Then the party left, as abruptly as it came, puzzling the Quaker family. A few years later, at a peace gathering between the pioneers and Indians, the Quaker father told of his experience. One Indian in the circle confided that he had played a role in that night's activities and interpreted the phrases the Quaker heard. These people trust in the Great Spirit. They will not harm us. We will not harm them. They shall be safe. The legend of the latchstring. I trusted in the Great Spirit too. If you notice, I made the Great Spirit a woman. But she did not spare me. Look, Liddy, it's done. Finally. Oh, what do you think? I think it's some of my best work. You were the perfect model. Ready to pose again after I put it on the train? Oh, an empty room always inspires me to start something new. Oh, let's have dinner tonight with Jessie and Hetty under the trees and stars to celebrate and talk. There's going to be a full moon tonight. I'm surprised you know the moon still shines. You've been so obsessed with your work. What? That's the way you are. So focused and intent, you forget everyone and everything. Well, life goes on, with or without you. I see you have no idea what I'm talking about, so I may as well just be frank. I'm in love with Eugene Elliott. He proposed to me, I had to say yes. I wanted you to know before I tell him. We all love Eugene, but marry him? You're joking, right? Okay, let's include Eugene for dinner tonight. You're not joking. No. No! You can't leave. I love you. Only you. Did you forget that? Forget our pact? The Red Rose girls made a pact to be married to our art, to be married to each other. Remember Howard Pyle and marriage and art don't mix? Remember, marriage is the end of a woman artist? Remember, our union will be a sign to all that we have answered a holy call, that our minds, bodies, souls, and hearts have been sacrificed for sacred art. My illustrations for Harper's and Collier's require just a few weeks and just a few canvases for each assignment. Your murals are bigger than you are. They take research, travel, and years of your time. Your commission for the Capitol filled the barn. And when you finish one commission, you take on another and then another without a break. You're obsessed. You make time for me, for the others, only when it's convenient for you. For today and all tomorrows, through every sweetness, every sorrow, our solemn vow we pray and make, that whom God joins, no man will break. Spoken by the woman who's been in love with a dead man. You heard me. You can't stop talking about him to the point that you preach. Well, Eugene's alive, and he's fun. I'm laughing like I used to. When we first met, when we made time for each other no matter how many projects we each had, when we first moved into the Red Rose Inn. Red roses will grow, red roses will bloom, red roses vow beneath this moon that red roses will be no man's wife. We will love each other in death, in life. Stop it! Stop it! Yes, we made a vow, but it's 10 years later. I've changed, times have changed, and Mother and Father's death changed everything here at Cosley. They made our life respectable, but now people are talking. You're too self-absorbed to know, to care, but I do. And I can't take the public scrutiny. I hear what you say. I'm not enough for you. Jessie, Hetty, and I aren't enough for you. Oh, you've enjoyed the success and the fame our lifestyle has brought, but now you want acceptance into society for both you and Eugene. You don't love him. He doesn't love you. But you need each other for what you both want now. Don't tell me I'm wrong. How long have you been sneaking around with him? The Woodwards thought he would be a good match for me. For me, Liddy. The Woodwards said he heard about me, my work, and was anxious for an introduction to me. But you knew that, didn't you? Recall your words. Violet, nothing. That's right. I heard you and I knew. I knew Eugene was your ticket away from me, away from us. And I don't want to be alone. Then why didn't you do something about it? Why? I'll tell you. Your religion and Mary Baker Eddy are more important than me. Your work and William Penn are more important than me. And you think that you, a woman with a dual personality who is not only charming and gifted, but who is also opinionated, difficult, selfish, and lives on the edge of bankruptcy, you think that you are more important than me. I've been alone for years. Do you have any idea what it's like to be the third wheel to the couple Jessie and Hetty make? I told myself art was enough. Success was enough. But I'm almost 40 years old and I see it's not. I want someone to talk to. Someone to listen. I'll listen. I'm listening now, Liddy. I'm sorry, so sorry. I know I get obsessed with my work, and when I'm obsessed, I'm insufferable. I know. I'll change. Let's go away. Just the two of us. No more work, no more commissions till we get this talked out. I'll change. I promise. You'll change. Really? Really, Violet? Prove it. Say no the next time you're offered a job so we can have time together. In 1911, muralist Edwin Austin Abbey died at the age of 59. In 1911, mentor Howard Pyle died at the age of 58. And in 1911, after I agreed to paint murals in the Cleveland courthouse, Miss Elizabeth Shippen Green married Eugene Elliott. And something inside me died at the age of 37. The latch string was out, and someone crept in, stealing one of us away. Despite a $100,000 commission to paint murals for the Senate. Yes, on Hetty's advice, I demanded to be paid what the committee would have paid Abby. $50 a square foot compared to my original $27 a square foot. And they agreed. I began my research. The Senate was a heavy part. Creation and preservation of the Union. Ironic theme, is it not? When the union I most cherished in life had been betrayed. First by Elizabeth, then by myself. For a woman whose greatest fear is to be alone, I declared my independence from the other red roses on July 4th, 1911, my own Independence Day. In a ceremony befitting bold revolutionaries everywhere, wearing a soldier's uniform and brandishing a sword, I declared in front of family and friends at a summer soiree that I was leaving Cogsley, as I could no longer live with non-believers.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth is marching on.
Thus saith the Lord, wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, and touch not the unclean thing. In the year of the Lord, 1912, I feel called upon to make a great change in my life. Just what that change is, I do not yet know. For now, however, I am called to come out from among them and be separate. That is, I feel no longer suffered to live in a home with unbelievers, individuals who are unready to receive the light of the divine science. In other words, I wanted a divorce. Soon thereafter, ideas for this front panel in the Senate chamber. A full-bosomed mother figure calling the helpless, the boneless, the hopeless into her heart for healing.
October 1st, 1911. Dearest Mummy, until today, I believed that the building commission had chosen the wrong artist for the Senate chamber. My central figure of unity appalled me. Because rumors of a Balkan war will dissolve worldwide unity, I tried to make another composition. Nothing came. And I have to go back to unity, because I believe there has to be that great, strong, enormous mother figure as a keystone to hold all the different parts of the room together, to hold me together. Today was a rainy day in London. The wind was blowing, my hair was coming down. I was very miserable indeed. And I felt that the Thames River looked like a rather good place to jump when you knew you couldn't carry out what you'd been asked to do. And I know that thought must worry you, Mummy, because I can't swim. Through the wind and the rain, I climbed up all the steps of the National Gallery, dropped upon a bench in the Central Hall, looked up, and saw a beautiful Italian painting. I suddenly realized that time had nothing to do with art. That art was not for time, not for an age, but for all time, eternal, like God. An expression of eternal qualities of beauty and harmony. Art connects God to humanity. Art connects me to God. In that moment, I was healed. I was whole. I'm coming home. Love Violet, still a Duchess of Oaks.
By the time I returned to the United States, a shrinking Violet had withered and died. I came home rooted and strong, like my surname, a mighty oak, to create my 45-foot unity to reign over the men in the Pennsylvania Senate. Betrayal had become triumph. With the loss of Elizabeth, my friendship with William Penn grew stronger. I know that may sound strange to your ears because of the centuries between his life and mine, but as William Penn himself said, death is but crossing the world as friends do the seas. They live in one another still. This is the comfort of friends, that though they may be said to die, yet their friendship and society are, in the best sense, ever present, because immortal. My friendship with William Penn inspired and sustained my art. In the words of William Penn, words that are on my gravestone, death cannot kill what never dies. Churchill said, "We shape our dwellings, and afterwards our dwellings shape us." Quite frankly, these are the only intelligent words that a knowing man ever said. Words that became the basis for my murals for Pennsylvania's state Supreme Court. The Senate chamber is for lawmaking. The Supreme Court is for declaring what the law is. Thus, for this chamber, I wanted to illustrate a history of law. As part of my research, I marched into a British library requesting such a history, and the librarian told me no such book exists. I replied, then I shall have to write the history myself. We begin with natural law. in the Greek and Roman traditions, Judeo-Christian law revealed in the Ten Commandments, Christian law revealed in the Beatitudes. Look, Jesus Christ himself walks on the water as the warships of the First World War are sinking. I remind you, I painted this canvas thinking that world peace was a dream fulfilled, long before Adolf Hitler and World War II. With images of a faithful Moses and a loving Jesus in a government building, my paintings make peace and justice a beautiful prayer. Though some may protest my blurring church with state, my murals are my silent but strong prayer for divine law and human law to become one in Pennsylvania's Supreme Court. What do you imagine when someone says scales of justice? Don't be shy, speak up. Surely you have a vision in your mind. How about you?
A woman, and she's holding something, and she's trying to balance it.
Indeed, yes. Yes, most of you have envisioned, I'm sure, a woman with a blindfold holding some sort of physical apparatus for the weighing of justice until there is an even balance. My scale of justice in this chamber is different, quite different. It is a musical scale, played by a celestial harpist in gold, the scale of the law and its harmonies. Divine law. Law of nature. Revealed law. Law of reason. Common law. Law of nations. International law. Divine law. All illustrated colorfully about you. An octave, beginning and ending on the same note. Divine law, the Alpha and the Omega, where God, regardless of how you see him or her, God is the ultimate judge. And in a perfect world, there would be no offenses to arbitrate. There would be harmony. There would be justice. There would be peace. We shape our dwellings, and afterwards our dwellings shape us. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. The state Supreme Court shines in brilliance, and I am not referring to the quality of my work, although that is what you thought, madam, is it not? I know you did, and you are mistaken. Look at the gold tones I used in composition, a color I used sparingly in the other rooms. Gold is the color of the divine, of love. Blue, which I used extravagantly with unity in the Senate chamber, symbolizes wisdom. When love and wisdom are combined, according to the writings that Professor Howard Pyle espoused and read to me and his other students every day, the result is law. Look at the pattern. You see the L on the left? Yes? You do? Do you see the word love inscribed on the vertical leg? You can respond, it's all right. I promise you I will not bite. You see it, yes? Good. A great monogram is formed by the letters L-A-W. Subsidiary letters forming the words love and wisdom are put in place by the winged figures of a seraphim and cherubim, symbolically garbed in red and blue. Above the green globe of the earth are the ethereal sea, stars and planets. The face of truth looms in the background, half concealed, half revealed. In that face of truth, do you see the eyes? They are the eyes of my sister Hester, copied from another painting. Do you see the tear? As I painted that tear, Hester and I had a long talk about the plight of women. Okay. I talk long, she listened. because God knows Hester was always my judge and jury when she was alive. I gave her that job on a permanent basis in Pennsylvania's Supreme Court. Hester, you were such a wonderful wife and loving mother. Margaret's birth evoked a new purpose in you. Then she died. Little Margaret died. We all had broken hearts. But for you, dear sister, the loss broke not just your heart. It broke your spirit and body as well. It was then I arrived at your choice of marriage. As Howard Pyle had predicted, marriage and childbirth were the end of you. The end of you. Yes, you had the love of a husband and daughter, but you lost your identity as an artist. I remember the sampler and pillow you embroidered for Margaret's nursery. You had turned into mother. No woman can go back and relive her life, but if you could, would you? Would you make the same choices? Would you choose love over art? Would you choose marriage? Tell me, why can't a woman have both, like men? You once told me that Howard Pyle could give me a passport to travel into a man's world. You were wrong. No. Howard Pyle gave me a passport to utopia, the world I created with women, the Red Rose Girls, where we bravely, some would say naively, broke convention and embraced the freedom to be Hester. Waking up to a blank canvas every day with the freedom to create, to love, to laugh. But utopia is a fantasy. And with Elizabeth's choosing to marry, our 14-year friendship, our fantasy existence, ended. So what do I have to show for my life with the choices I've made? Frankly, Hester, I had no choice. I was born to paint, no more, no less. I have no husband, no children, no money. All the money I ever made was poured back into supplies or to travel abroad for inspiration. But I do have the freedom to practice and to perfect my art every single day without distraction. I am nobody's wife. I am everlastingly wedded to art. And as a mother, I birth something new each time I stand in front of an easel. I bleed cadmium red, sweat cerulean blue, cry tears of yellow ochre, unconsciously painting my secrets in every brushstroke. I have been so very public with my life, Hester. No wonder I gasp each time I look at my work. These murals mirror the canvas of my soul. Thank God no one else seems to see. The Supreme Court murals were unveiled in May 1927, the same month that Charles Lindbergh made his transatlantic flight. I could not help but draw comparisons between Penn and Lindbergh. They both changed the world with a vision, a single act of faith. Lucky Lindy connected the continents in a remarkable new way. But I dare say Mr. Penn had a greater vision. He had a dream of international peace, of an international court to settle disputes between nations. With a world partly deaf, almost blind, and slow to understand, it took almost 200 years. No, it took over 200 years for William Penn's principles of global kindness and justice without bloodshed to become a victorious reality in the League of Nations, then the United Nations. Look at the mural. Notice any similarities between my work and Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper? It's all right, you should. I believe the United Nations is our Last Supper, the last chance for all who share this planet to sit together civilly and to solve differences using words, not weapons. Otherwise, I believe beautiful unity will be sacrificed in a global Armageddon. Recall Unity's pose. Arms outstretched and head bowed like Jesus on the cross. We cannot allow unity to be crucified. With this said, and because Penn began planting his seeds of peace in the consecrated ground of the city of brotherly love, I believe the United Nations should be headquartered in Philadelphia. Anyone agree with me? Yes, it's not a bad idea. Thank you, sir. Thank you from me and the princely man of peace himself, Mr. Penn. Opposite my sister and love and wisdom is the panel with William Penn and other law-giving notables. Did you know Thomas Jefferson declared that William Penn was the greatest lawgiver the world has produced? Yes.
No.
He did. He did indeed. And I do hope the lawyers in my audience will take note.
Huh.
Just as the scales of justice begin and end on the same note, tonight's tour will do the same with William Penn. Study the panel. George Fox blesses William Penn. Sir Thomas More beside him. John Milton, Henry IV of France, John Locke, Woodrow Wilson. Men with principles, men with a divine mission. In the back, barely there, in the left-hand corner, I have included a woman. Look closely. She stands in the shadow of these great men, of all the great men in the Supreme Court. It is I, with a copy of my book, The Holy Experiment. An audacious move, don't you think?
Bold.
Oh, why would I include myself in the company of such esteemed men? I painted this canvas and the others for the Supreme Court in the wake of the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920, giving women the right to vote. Finally, the phrase, all men are created equal, was legally extended to women. And here, in Pennsylvania's Supreme Court, without excuse, without apology, Violet Oakley, a woman with a high school education and a determination to excel in art, can be the equal to all these great men, even that of William Penn. Oh, my dearest sir, my immortal friend, kindred spirit. Tonight it is I who bids you au revoir. We've had a long relationship, you and I. When we first met, I was a shy 28-year-old dreamer. You were a pioneer who navigated to a new world. And you gave me the strength to be a pioneer myself. I am the first woman, but hopefully not the last, with a voice in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of Pennsylvania government. My oneness in threeness, my threeness in a oneness. much like my life as a Red Rose girl. Near the end of my life, however, the word genius was no longer attached to my name. Where once it was said the torches of the great masters had been passed to me, murals became passé. With the advent of cubism and modern art, I no longer made history. I was history. William, you have been a source of friendship, of comfort, of inspiration for a long time, living and breathing inside me, through me. I was so dependent on you that another friend, a good friend, Elizabeth Shippen Green, Elliot, once charged me with being in love with you. I vehemently denied such an indictment. However, tonight, standing here alongside these murals of judgment, of law, I am compelled to confess my love. After 43 murals, to keep you close, a reason to say your name, I called my cat pen Billy and wrote a book about you. Somewhat obsessed, possessed, and like you, passionate for worldwide peace and religious freedom and tolerance for all people. The same person who knew I loved you with my heart, soul, and spirit, believed I had a dual personality. Elizabeth knew me well. She once loved the violets and would rather hide in a corner than face a room full of people. Elizabeth loves the violet who wore purple every day and would laugh when friends and neighbors mocked. Violet Oakley came to the dinner party dressed as usual in the living room drapes. Elizabeth knew I desired nothing more than to disappear into one of her romantic illustrations, live in a comfortable Victorian home, filled with Victorian friends in their Victorian clothes, and be one of Howard Pyle's Red Rose girls forever and forever. Ironically, it was Elizabeth who introduced me to you when she explained how your English tenants each gave you a red rose in return for cultivating your land. Tonight, I wish to make similar reparation for allowing me to cultivate your story and plant your seeds of peace in my art, in my writing, in the world. A holy experiment for you, a holy experience for me. You once said, two spirits who live in the same divine principle, despite time and space, cannot be divided. You and I have one heart, one soul, one story, our story. Tonight, a debt is paid to you, from me, with love.